Let's talk today about Johannes Vermeer. Died in 1675. Painted most of his works way more than 150 years before the camera was invented. So how come so many people say that, man, his paintings look like photographs? Some would say realism, some would say the way he used light, and I agree with that. But I'm also here today to share with you 5 techniques that he used that we can use today in our photography work. And here's the crazy part. In his lifetime, he created around 3 dozen or so paintings. Lots of speculation as to why from folks a whole lot smarter than me. But one of my theories is that he and his wife, Katerina, had 11 surviving children. So if you can imagine, 11 kids, all sorts of ages, up and down, running around, while you're trying to paint, yeah, let's see how much you get done. The first technique that I want to start with is how he created depth in his images using perspective and a vanishing point, and having objects in the image that followed the path. Vermeer was just not painting checkerboard floors. He was creating a highway for our eyes. A tip for you, the next time you're out shooting, look for these lines. They don't have to be, objects or buildings. They can be shadows. They can be pretty much anything that you see that draws the viewer's eye to where you want them to look. Also, sometimes try squatting down a little bit, because when you squat down and you photograph out, it will certainly exaggerate those lines. Tip number 2, depth of field by creating foreground blur. Look at the lace maker here. The threads in the foreground, they're blurred. But she's sharp, so he was creating bokeh way before we ever had an f-stop. So a tip here, when you're out shooting and you find your subject, try to find something in the foreground. Don't just move over it or move around it. Put it in the frame, but focus on your subject. Let the foreground go blurry. It creates depth, and it makes the viewer kind of look past that object to where you want them to look. Technique number 3, repoussoir framing. In French, it means to push back. Basically, it means putting something in your image in the foreground that, doesn't block the subject, but the viewer has to kind of go around it or look past it. But you're also, by having that, you're inviting the viewer to come in and look around. Here, Officer and Laughing Girl, Vermeer used a man, but a lot of times he used a curtain, he'd pull it back or whatever. So, the next time you're out shooting, a tip is, look for things. Don't just look around them. And this is different than causing them to blur. Have them in the image, but, have them to the side or, shoot through them. Technique number 4, the power of negative space. Negative space in an image is often just as vital as the positive space. Sometimes it's not always what you put in, it's what you leave out. And here in the Milkmaid, he has so much open space in the back wall, but it draws you, it creates a mood, a sense of calmness to the scene, and it's very powerful. So the next time you're out, if you find an image and it's just too busy, move around, zoom in, zoom out, whether your feet or whether your lens, and get that image to where you want, to get all that noise out of the image and let the viewer focus on what you saw and what you want them to see. Before I go to the 5th and final technique, there's a little tip that I'd like to give, and it's when you're out shooting on the streets, and a lot of times you'll have power lines. In Vietnam, we got plenty of them. And a lot of photographers will, avoid them or edit them out in post, but, I like them. I think that if you use them correctly, they can certainly aid in your image. Vermeer would have called them orthogonal lines. They're lines that are in the image that draw the viewer where you want them to look. And a lot of times when I'm out looking, I'll look for them, and where they converge, I'll just prop up, kick back, and wait for the magic to happen. Sometimes it does. To me, power lines can be like an aid to adding composition to the chaos. And believe me, on the streets of Vietnam, we got plenty of chaos. Technique number 5, motion blur. Vermeer painted motion blur in 1672. Take a look at the guitar player's strings. They're blurred, creating a sense of movement. Compare that to the kid I shot on the streets playing badminton. Just a slight blur to the racket. Same technique, 350 odd years apart. And when Vietnam, chaotic traffic moving around, yeah, Vermeer would have lost his mind over this one. So when you're out shooting around, Start with about 1/30th of a second. Pan with your subject. It does depend on how far your subject is from you, will give you different effects, so play around, see what you like. But it all starts here. Subtle motion in an image that you chose to create. So what's coming in chapter 2? Well, when most people hear the word Vermeer, they think of one painting, the girl with the pearl earring. But there's a reason I left her for chapter 2, because she kind of breaks every rule that we just talked about. So if you'd like to see her, make sure and subscribe so you don't miss. And if you like what you saw so far, appreciate a like below. It really helps out. But in the meantime, let me know what you want to hear from the girl in the pearl earring. Questions about her, thoughts about her, and we'll discuss them. Hope to see you.